Hey everyone, David here with a somewhat late review of the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know it's because of my work schedule that things got kind of hectic and I was able to watch the episode, but I didn't get a chance to actually reviewing it up until now. But hopefully I made it just in time to kind of seep into your memory and remind you that, yeah, there was an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last night. In case you're still being stoked about Infinity War coming very, very soon, we still have this thing going. Something that could potentially end in the next few weeks. And leading up to that end game is another episode entitled The Honeymoon, which is the thing that Fitz and Simmons promised to each other after the wedding that unfortunately I'm scared they might not properly have, but who knows? Under different perceptions, that might have already happened in this episode. But this is another episode that feels kind of like a two-parter with last week's episode where we got our characters from point A to point B, except this was more like point B to point C. And the stakes were just a smidget higher this time around, with some more action-packed sequences and more things kind of going down on a physical level rather than an emotional one. But that's not to say that the emotional side of things were kind of left behind. So two of last week's three storylines kind of conjoined during the first third or so of this episode. And I have to admit, this is probably one of the most baffling things about the episode that kind of bothered me, is just how quick and easy it was for Daisy, May, as well as the rest of the people inside of the Quinjet, were able to actually properly and very accurately find Coulson and Talbot in that tundra-looking landscape. I just didn't exactly really buy into them finding them so quickly. Like, at the beginning of the episode, like, where are they? And they literally jump cut to them being rescued. Just in the nick of time when What's-Her-Face, Barbie doll, manages to find them. Now, before I get into more insults with her, this episode actually did a good job at making me care. Not that I didn't care for her characters, I was warming up to her, but this was the episode that not only made me kind of sympathize with Ruby a little more, but also made me buy into the notion that Dove Cameron, who plays the character, she's not that bad of an actress. She's not spectacularly great, but she pulls her weight around, as opposed compared to the other veterans, the other Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. veterans within the episode, within the show. She's not so bad. She's not so bad. I never really thought that she was terrible. It's just that her character was kind of one note. That here she was able to show different sides to her perspective, especially when she was tricking her mom, or the General Hale in this case, into getting locked inside her room. And it was that scene that made me go, huh, all that stuff that she was saying about, you know, not living up to her expectations or whatever, that could have been a ploy, that could have been her kind of hamming it up just to kind of catch her off guard, or it could have been her legit feelings and she was just kind of amplifying them. She was being kind of hyperbolic about them, but somewhere deep inside, she truly feels that way. And I was kind of second guessing myself, and I feel like that's a slight testament to her performance. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I still feel like her appearance is a little iffy from time to time, especially because of just how overexposed her face is, but at least she's doing her due diligence to pulling her weight throughout. So Coulson is finally reunited with his team, and this kind of served as a way to get our characters kind of caught up, while at the same time knowing that Talbot's still alive. And this provided some insight on certain characters, but never really propelling the plot forward with them. But that's fine. You know, I feel like that's fine for now. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it does some interesting things that you look at and go, okay, this is kind of like a neat little window into their lives. Like, for example, well, Deke gets shot. And I feel like Deke getting shot didn't have the profound effect that it was probably going for. I mean, it didn't make me gasp like, oh my god, I can't believe they just made him kill that. Oh my god, like, it didn't make me get that reaction out of me, but it did have a slight oh shit effect, and it did make me go like, okay, well, despite being reckless, I at least got somewhat moved. So at least you were doing something with the character better here in the last half, as opposed to in the first half where I was like, okay, finally. Just like I was with like Anja with The Walking Dead or something. So at least we weren't in that territory. But it also gave Piper something to do to perform surgery on her. And also left to a admittingly really funny monologue of Deke on drugs going on about how he's crushing on Daisy. And that was a really great moment. But it also put into perspective just how quickly Coulson was kind of gone and came back. And it was him, like, looking back, like, what fits a cell, all this stuff, and it's like, okay, I can't wait for him to get the proper briefing of what exactly went down with Fitz and how that's going to have an effect on the team, and how Coulson's going to manage this effect on the team for the time being, considering that he's on a time clock. A time clock that got kind of taken on by May, which was ultimately the emotional core of the episode. Not only for the subplot, but probably for the entire episode, was that scene between Coulson and May, which was a really great scene. It was a little The only iffy thing about it was that Coulson was a little perplexing in that scene where May was calling out on his bullshit, and she has the right to call him out on this bullshit, but it's bullshit that I think Coulson, 5 years in, should kind of be self-aware about, and yet he was a little oblivious. It was like something that just didn't feel so Coulson-y, that May had to spell it out for him, like, yes, I love you, it's kind of, and him to shut up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that did shut him up, but I feel like he wouldn't have so much of a confused face. It's more like a, oh yeah, or like a reminded type of face, like reminded of what exactly he's affecting by being reckless as he is. And falling in second place would have to be Talbot once more with that emotional beacon where I can't believe I'm sympathizing with a character like this, who is ultimately becoming really likable and charismatic, but also has that whole angle to him that makes you go, wow, I feel bad for you. You know, being kind of fucked up the way you are, seeing Daisy, and his first thought is to throw a fucking a piece of, you know, tape dispenser at her head. But besides that, him reminiscing of his son and wanting that one call, it's like, wow, I can't believe you're making me feel this way for a character. A character that I think, second to Coulson or maybe a couple of other characters, I would feel genuinely bad if they managed to kill off by the end of the season. Unless they have some bigger plans for him in the MCU, it's a shame, because this is ultimately one of the best interpretations of Talbot, and one that I could have wished to have seen to a degree with William Hurt's General Ross, or even Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, and I think he could have fit in there somewhere. Maybe dial back on the one-liners, but this could have been a good delicate balance to put him in the cinematic universe, and I think Adrian Pasdar nailed it with that character. I can definitely tell he loves playing this character, and I will have to see him continue playing the character, but I'm a little I'm a little skeptical as to whether or not he's going to pull through after this 5th season, should they continue the show, because of that type of arc that ultimately is going to probably need redemption. Meanwhile, the undying trio known as Yo-Yo, Fitz, and Simmons finally invade that compound that they think they could probably find a solution for the Gravitonium, and it is here where a version of Ivanov and other little, robots and whatnot kind of exchange blows and deal in some action sequences that kind of make up the bulk of the action part of this episode, minus the little fight between Daisy and Ruby in the snow. And this was the aspect that was probably the weakest one, and even then it was passable. Like I said, it had entertaining moments, especially with Fitz and Simmons having their honeymoon amongst a shootout that looked like something out of a Tarantino movie. And then we had Yo-Yo going up against Ivanov after having a slight defect with her arms. And this is what reminded me that the only other thing I have, a qualm I have with the episode, would be that there were some technical hiccups throughout the episode, whether it be some iffy editing, some ADR that just didn't match, where you can clearly tell some lines were added in post. Like, ever so often, Yo-Yo or even Simmons had a line that they said when their head was turned away from the camera, and then they look back and it's like, I don't think you were meant to say that. And it was also during Yo-Yo's fight with Ivanov that you can clearly see the double. I think they could have used an extra pass of coverage or something, but maybe they were under a time clock and they had to rush this out, hence explaining the quick cut of Daisy and the rest of the team finding Coulson and Talbot out there all of a sudden, just out of nowhere. It would kind of make sense for why there was a sudden jolt type of cut there, because it just kind of felt out of nowhere, and that would probably be explained by a Russian production and why we had certain scenes that just didn't gel 100%. But it was still entertaining to see Yo-Yo go up against all the people, and the most interesting thing to come out of this subplot would be Yo-Yo confessing to Fitz and Simmons that somehow, some way, Coulson has to die for everything to work and for the Earth to not get destroyed. Where exactly this is going to lead into, I don't know, because after this they only got 5 episodes to properly explain it, leading up to a finale that is titled The End. Don't fuck with me, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, please. Just don't do it. Ultimately, The Honeymoon is another necessary episode to get our characters from one section of the plot to another, with some interesting things to still kind of keep in mind, but not exactly the type of episode that you're gonna instantly go on Twitter and kind of ramble about. I'm just slightly disappointed by the rush production that led to some really glaring issues on the technical level, because I'm persnickety about that, and to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D kind of falter there, that's gonna lead me to giving The Honeymoon a very, very high 7 out of 10. So, Please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Please let me know where your guys' theories for the season 5 finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you think that it's going to end the show entirely with Coulson dying? Or do you think that there's going to be some kind of way to kind of maneuver the entire thing into a 6th season, should there be one? Please post all of your fan theories in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like and share button. And do not forget to subscribe for more reviews leading up to the finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. along with Infinity War, to see how that all ties in together, considered by Jed Whedon, who said they're waiting for that movie to come out to see what they can do. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. This debuted back in 2003 when it was becoming really hot with the whole intellectual property of not just Spider-Man, but pretty much anything that's Marvel related for a very key demographic centered around young teens. And what better network to put this thing on than on the network that is very much aimed at young teens, MTV.
Best dressed? Please, the girls got hips like snack trays.